Breaking tonight, there is major political fallout to a sweeping deal between Ottawa and Alberta that aims to build a new oil pipeline and transform Canada's energy sector.
It's a great day for Alberta. It's a great day for Canada.
The ambitious plan that's already led to the resignation of a prominent Liberal cabinet minister and the pushback against it.
They're not going to destroy us with a pipeline. We're going to stand tall.
As Alberta and Ottawa press reset on relations, where does this leave BC? At issue is here with the political risks and rewards. Plus, the search for loved ones at a charred apartment complex in Hong Kong.
We can avoid these catastrophes by building correctly with the correct materials.
Grief, outrage, and questions about how the staggering fire could have been prevented. And the targeted National Guard shooting in Washington turns fatal.
She's no longer with us. She's looking down at us right now.
What we're learning about the alleged shooter and the victims.
From CBC News, this is The National with Chief Correspondent Adrian Arsenault.
Thanks for joining us. Ottawa and Alberta have now officially put pen to paper, signing an agreement aimed at getting another pipeline built to the BC coast. It lays out a political pathway, but offers no guarantees it will happen. Mark Carney and Danielle Smith are both painting this deal as a win for the economy and for national unity. But for many in British Columbia, this is anything but unifying. Its premier and many First Nations along the Pacific coast are adamant a new pipeline shouldn't be built and won't be. We have team coverage on this story in Ottawa, Alberta, and British Columbia, pulling apart the details and the reaction, including from the energy industry, First Nations communities, and inside the Liberal Party. And on that, already a big move. Justin Trudeau's former Environment Minister, Stephen Guilbeault, has now quit Mark Carney's cabinet. Kate McKenna starts at the beginning with the signatures and the fine print.
It's so nice to see you.
A relationship reset and a sweeping energy deal between two jurisdictions often at odds.
This is Canada working. This is cooperative federalism.
The Prime Minister and Alberta's Premier signed a new agreement. In it, Ottawa pledges support for a new oil pipeline to the Pacific.
That's going to make Canada stronger, more independent, more resilient.
We both know that Canada can never reach its true potential as a global energy superpower without a strong and thriving Alberta energy sector at the center of that effort.
In exchange, Alberta will commit to raising its industrial carbon price, lowering methane emissions, and supporting carbon capture and storage.
A new relationship and a new beginning needs a starting point grounded in good faith.
But there is clear dissent. British Columbia says it wasn't consulted, and any pipeline faces strong opposition from coastal First Nations.
I think there are wins for everybody, but that can't happen if we're not all at the table together.
Ottawa will also suspend or drop some environmental regulations in Alberta that the province says strangles growth. Exemptions Ontario also wants.
Hopefully we get treated fairly right across the board.
All of it too much for Liberal Stephen Guilbeault, who announced he's resigning from cabinet. In a statement, the lifelong environmentalist said he strongly opposes the Memorandum of Understanding and a reversal of some laws he put in place when he was Environment Minister.
Stephen Guilbeault has resigned.
His departure was welcomed in the Alberta legislature.
I don't think that there's any environmentalists that could sit in the Liberal caucus right now with what they're doing.
All this, and there are no guarantees a pipeline will be built, given that it needs a company to build it and Indigenous co-ownership.
If there's not a private sector component, there won't be a pipeline.
The Prime Minister said he was grateful for Stephen Guilbeault's contributions, and Carney's energy minister is traveling to BC to meet with the Premier, having key conversations with the province after the fact. Kate McKenna, CBC News, Ottawa.
Let's bring in our chief political correspondent, Rosemary Barton. So, Rosie, I suppose bottom line for Canadians, what is the likelihood this pipeline will get built?
Adrian, this is a big move by Ottawa to remove most of the barriers that the Premier of Alberta said were standing in the way of a future pipeline. It's a clear sign, too, that the Prime Minister's behind it. So long, of course, as those various commitments on reducing emissions go ahead, there are still many hurdles that have to be overcome, namely finding a company to fund and build the pipeline. But that will likely be much easier given these changes. How far Ottawa went with these changes and with this deal is surprising, and it does solve the problem of the Alberta government's frustrations and anger with Ottawa, but it opens up new big political challenges too.
Let's talk about some of those, the risks and the rewards.
Obviously, we saw the first one today, the resignation of Stephen Guilbeault from Cabinet, who strongly opposes the agreement, and in fact said many of the measures that he put in place as Environment Minister under Justin Trudeau have been or will be dismantled. Guilbeault, though, was a divisive figure for sure, but losing a Cabinet Minister is very damaging for the Prime Minister. Both Alberta and Ottawa have to now find some way to collaborate and engage with British Columbia and coastal First Nations who are strongly against the pipeline. Neither of them have a veto on the project, but they do have the potential to create real political problems for a Prime Minister who, remember, Adrian, has 20 seats in British Columbia. So the risks may be bigger than the reward, at least in the very short term.
All right, understood. Rosemary Barton in Ottawa, thank you.
Thanks.
Politics and pipelines, and of course, pipeline politics. Rosie will be back with the At Issue panel to dig into all of it. That conversation in about 20 minutes. Well, the agreement isn't just sparking division in Ottawa. BC buy-in will be a critical part of any pipeline. But as we've heard, neither the province nor First Nations were at the table with Alberta. Yasmin Renea is in Prince Rupert tonight on BC's coast, right on a possible pipeline route. And there's already pushback.
In the port city of Prince Rupert, fierce opposition to a new pipeline.
They're not going to destroy us with a pipeline. We're going to do what we have to do to protect who we are as First Nations people. We're going to stand tall.
While Ottawa's memorandum of understanding with Alberta doesn't say what route the pipeline will take, Premier Danielle Smith has suggested Prince Rupert, about 770 kilometers northwest of Vancouver, would make a good endpoint because of its proximity to Asia.
We've been down this road. We'll go down this road again to ensure that we are heard and understood about what we value on the coast and why we just aren't ever going to accept a pipeline.
The deal opens the door for changes to a law that bans tanker traffic off BC's north coast, an idea sharply rejected by coastal First Nations who say any oil spills would be catastrophic.
We will not be able to harvest like we do. We'll not be able to maintain the lifestyle that we have on that coast. So for us, it is quite an emotional battle.
British Columbia Premier David Eby, who was left out of the MOU negotiation, says the deal risks taking up too much attention.
With all of the variables that have yet to be fulfilled, no proponent, no route, no money, no First Nation support, that it cannot draw limited federal resources, limited Indigenous governance resources, limited provincial resources away from the real projects.
Other critics say there's no business case for a new pipeline. Instead, capacity could be increased at Trans Mountain, which runs from Edmonton to Burnaby.
There's not enough oil demand to justify building a new pipeline plus using all the existing pipelines. So it doesn't make economic sense. So I think it's
The Memorandum of Understanding says the pipeline must offer opportunities for Indigenous co-ownership and that profits should be shared with First Nations. But an alliance of 9 First Nations in BC says those economic benefits aren't worth risking the environment or their way of life.
And Yasmin, as opposed as the BC government appears to be, I'm not sure it's clear what its next step is.
That's right. Eby says the province has no plans to file a legal challenge because it already did that with the Trans Mountain pipeline expansion years ago and lost. He says he will take a stronger stance if the MOU pulls focus from ongoing projects.
All right, thank you. That's Yasmin Renea in Prince Rupert, BC. In British Columbia, the agreement may be a hard sell for Alberta's oil patch, quite the opposite. As Kyle Back shows us, the mood among business leaders ranges from positive to positively bullish.
Thank you very much. Wow. A standing ovation by a business crowd of 1,200 in downtown Calgary, excited and hopeful at the prospects of not just a new oil pipeline, but development throughout the energy sector.
We're catalyzing generational investments by creating the right conditions to get big things built here in Alberta and right across Canada.
It's so nice to see you. A memorandum of understanding between the federal government and Alberta government vows to also support a multi-billion-dollar carbon capture project, creating nuclear power and AI data centers.
This morning's announcement heralds truly a new era in the relationship between Alberta and Ottawa.
The deal is just paperwork, but necessary to clear federal environmental policies that would prohibit any new oil pipeline to the northwest BC coast.
I'm going to take the Prime Minister at his word. This is a bold move. It's a great partnership.
Still, there are plenty of steps ahead, like picking a route, getting permits in place, consulting with communities along the route, convincing oil producers to sign long-term contracts to use the pipeline, and of course, finding a private company to develop and build this pipeline project.
There's way too much money involved for that not to happen. The fundamental difference now is we have a federal government that really seems pretty intent on providing the comfort that's needed.
For now, the Alberta government continues to develop the pipeline plan itself until a private company steps up.
And if you know one in the room, please, you can come see us. You can come see us afterwards.
One step cleared toward a new oil pipeline, with a long journey ahead for a project that still doesn't even have a name. Kyle Bax, CBC News, Calgary.
To BC now, where police on Vancouver Island say there are no survivors after a small plane crashed near Nanaimo.
Very scary. I mean, a few hundred feet to the right and it would have been on our ceiling.
Neighbors were awakened around 3 a.m. by the sound of the Cessna going down. The wreckage was located in a nearby wooded area. The flight company confirms their pilot died in the crash, but it's still not clear if anyone else was on board. The Transportation Safety Board is investigating. In Washington tonight, word that the shooting of National Guard members on Wednesday has turned deadly. This comes as the world learns more about the Afghan national accused in the targeted ambush. Karen Pauls begins with condemnation from President Trump.
And I want to express the anguish and the horror.
U.S. President Donald Trump broke the news on a Thanksgiving call with the military. 20-year-old Sarah Beckstrom didn't survive.
She's no longer with us. She's looking down at us right now.
She and 24-year-old Andrew Wolf ambushed while patrolling near the White House. Wolf, in critical condition, may not last the night. His neighbor in shock.
Best neighbor you could ask for, really. It really caught us off guard. Really close to home.
The suspected shooter, identified as 29-year-old Afghan national Rahmanullah Lakhanwal. Charges against him will be upgraded.
We will do everything in our power to seek the death penalty.
Director John Radcliffe said in a statement that Lakhanwal worked with the CIA in Afghanistan. Reports say part of a unit responsible for actions like extrajudicial executions. He was evacuated by the U.S. military after the fall of Kabul in 2021 under a Biden-era program called Operation Allies Welcome, and granted asylum under the Trump administration in April.
There is confirmation now that the subject had a relationship in Afghanistan with partner forces. We are fully investigating that aspect of his background.
The U.S. is now reviewing all asylum cases approved under President Joe Biden and temporarily suspending all immigration requests by Afghan nationals.
Afghans didn't commit a crime. One lone deranged gunman committed a crime.
Advocates say the shooting should not be used to punish Afghans in the U.S., and particularly those who were wartime allies.
They undergo more vetting than the U.S. military, than police officers, and certainly more than politicians.
A senior U.S. official told CNN Lakhanwal was vetted in 2011 and again before he was allowed into the U.S., and he was clean on all checks. Karen Pauls, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Russian President Vladimir Putin said the 28-point peace plan leaked last week could form the basis for a future agreement with Ukraine, but also signaled little interest in peace negotiations.
подписывать документы с украинским руководством бессмысленно.
Putin said it's pointless to sign documents with Ukrainian leadership, suggesting that Ukraine doesn't have a legitimate government. Putin also said that when Kyiv withdraws from Ukrainian territory that Russia claims, then there will be a ceasefire, and otherwise he'll fight on. The original U.S. plan, widely seen as tilted heavily towards Russian interests, has seen some major revisions this week after negotiations with Kyiv. While in Turkey, there's another call for peace.
Fueled by prevailing strategies of economic and military power. This is enabling what Pope Francis called a third world war fought piecemeal. We must in no way give in to this.
Pope Leo met with the Turkish president and stressed the importance of Turkey as a bridge between the cultures and religions of the East and West. He's in the region to mark the 1700th anniversary of the Council of Nicaea, Christianity's first ecumenical council. In Hong Kong, the death toll has now surpassed 90, and hundreds more are still missing in that massive high-rise fire. As Cameron McIntosh shows us, as crews search for the living and the dead, authorities are now laying blame and promising change.
Worst fears confirmed. A grieving woman cries as photos of the dead, pulled from Hong Kong's Wong Fuk Court apartment complex, are posted for identification. I cannot describe my feelings, says Chung, only giving her first name. She's looking for her sister and brother-in-law. As 7 high-rise apartment buildings stand charred, smoldering. The fire's under control as crews struggle to reach higher levels where it's believed residents were trapped.
We will endeavor to effect forcible entry to all the units to ensure that there are no other possible casualties.
The towers were under renovation, draped in massive tarps held up by bamboo scaffolding, which rapidly burned along with foam exterior cladding, engulfing the buildings. Hong Kong Chief Executive John Lee says 3 executives of the company doing the work have been arrested, as authorities vow to ban bamboo scaffolding. This disaster, bigger but strikingly similar to the 2017 London Grenfell Tower fire that killed 72 people, also blamed on flammable cladding.
Lessons aren't learned unless you apply what you've actually seen.
Surveyor Arnold Tarling is a fire prevention specialist.
We can avoid these catastrophes by building correctly with the correct materials and always asking, is what I'm doing to that building making it more dangerous?
As volunteers accept donations for the now homeless, many likely also lost family, immediate emergency payments of about $1,800 Canadian are being made to each apartment. Wong Sik Kam, displaced by the fire, fears what his firefighter son may find inside on the higher floors. The magnitude of this tragedy, still unknown. Cameron McIntosh, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A Nova Scotia MP paid tribute today in the House of Commons to Colleen Jones for her decades as a champion curler and a CBC broadcaster.
Colleen Jones broke down barrier after barrier, smashing through glass ceilings.
The member for Halifax rhymed off Colleen's sporting record: 2-time world champion, 6-time national champion, and a 16-time provincial champion. In 1986, she became the first female sports anchor in Halifax history. Colleen's family announced her death on Tuesday at the age of 65. Well, Quebec is adding new restrictions to religious acts in public spaces.
This proposed legislation would be an unprecedented assault on fundamental freedom.
What's being banned and the controversy behind the move. Nova Scotia's commercial lobster season is being overshadowed by threats and violence.
I definitely feel uneasy. There's some reckless individuals.
The fifth estate on who's behind the alleged crimes. And a friendship founded on a failed group chat.
Kind of having an older brother that I never really had.
We're back in 2. And that is a celebratory kickoff to the holiday season in New York City, where the 99th annual Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade wound through downtown Manhattan. The parade featured 34 balloons, 28 floats, 11 marching bands from across the U.S. And of course, the big man himself, was Santa Claus. Here at home, the Quebec legislature has resoundingly passed a bill to put more restrictions on public displays of religious faith. Sarah Levitt shows us why some say the province is going too far and harming religious freedom.
Final.
With a unanimous vote, it became official. The Quebec government is getting stricter about secularism.
We think that when the state is neutral, Quebecers are free.
Bill 9 adds to a similar law passed in 2019. It banned public employees in positions of authority like teachers from wearing religious symbols. Now the ban extends to subsidized daycares and private schools.
I don't understand why we're here.
Daycare director Maria English feels the law mostly targets women who wear hijabs, many of whom work in the daycare system. A grandfather clause means those already working won't be affected. English says the government is tackling a problem that doesn't exist.
A religious symbol is not determine how you will be with the children, so it will take away some very nurturing educators.
The new law will fine groups up to $1,125 if they pray in public. Prayer rooms in public institutions like universities will also be banned, causing distress for some.
The university has multiple services for the well-being of its students, and the prayer room is one of those services.
Supporters of the law say the drive for religious neutrality stems from the 1960s, when Quebec society began to break ties with the Catholic Church.
It is important to have this framework to work together in order for us to protect some values like the separation between the church and the state.
But critics say the government has a distorted view of secularism.
An unprecedented assault on fundamental freedoms, including freedom of religion, expression, peaceful assembly, and equality.
The province will use the notwithstanding clause to override sections of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, leaving few alternatives for Quebecers who fear they're losing their rights. Sarah Levitt, CBC News, Montreal.
Black market lobster sales are being blamed for a wave of violence in Nova Scotia.
At one point, it was happening so frequently, you couldn't even keep up with what was going on.
The Fifth Estate investigates what is behind the spike in crime. After the break, Rosie's here with that issue. Hey there.
Hey, Adrian. Tonight, we're obviously going to talk about that deal between Alberta and Ottawa.
It's an example of cooperative federalism. We're agreeing in partnership and in a spirit of trust.
So does this proposal mean a pipeline to BC is imminent, and could the Prime Minister lose more MPs and allies over this agreement? Chantal, Andrew, Althea, and Jason Markusov join me to talk about that and more.
In Nova Scotia, American booze will be back on the shelves on Monday, but only temporarily. The province is selling off its remaining U.S. inventory worth about $14 million. The profits will go to Feed Nova Scotia, which supports food banks across the province and other community groups. U.S. wine and liquor was pulled in March in response to Trump's tariffs. Well, traps are being set in southwestern Nova Scotia, where the billion-dollar lobster fishing season is underway. More than 1,400 boats headed out this week to dump their traps into the ocean. Southwestern Nova Scotia is home to the most lucrative lobster fishery in the entire country. But it's also an area prone to violence. Commercial fishers blame the black market and allege the problems are caused by First Nations overfishing. But as Stephen D'Souza shows us, a new investigation by the Fifth Estate finds little evidence to back those claims.
I cut through the dining room, the kitchen, and stop in the living room.
Geoffrey Jobert never thought running a lobster processing business would lead to someone shooting at his home.
I definitely feel uneasy. There's some reckless individuals like that.
He says trouble came after he started buying from a new boat that had upset some people. It's part of a string of violent acts all tied to the lobster business in southwest Nova Scotia.
At one point, it was happening so frequently, you couldn't even keep up with what was going on.
Some locals and commercial fishermen blame the crime on First Nations fishers. saying they're harvesting and selling lobster outside the commercial season. And they allege it's attracting crime and threatening the health of the stock. But an investigation by the Fifth Estate finds little evidence to back up those claims. A memo from Fisheries and Oceans Canada, obtained by the Fifth Estate, says while some First Nations lobster is being sold illegally and commercial catches are trending down, the decrease has not been directly linked to First Nations fishing. It says stocks are in the healthy zone. That echoes what Mi'kmaq have said for years.
Even if they're harvesting during seasons where the lobster industry isn't, the impact would be minimal.
And what about unreported cash sales? Zachary Thibault, himself facing charges for threats and assault, worked as an unlicensed lobster broker.
Your unreported sales, how much of that was Indigenous, how much non-Indigenous?
10% Indigenous. Yeah, 10-15%.
And the rest is non-Indigenous?
Yeah.
Last week, the RCMP arrested 3 men that they say were responsible for the majority of the crime in the area, with much of the violence tied to drugs. One of those arrested, Zach Thibault's father, Eric. Stephen D'Souza, CBC News, Toronto.
You can stream the Fifth Estate's investigation Trapped on the Water right now on YouTube or watch it Friday at 9 p.m. on CBC Television and CBC Gem, 9:30 in Newfoundland. Now, let's break down the news shaping our world tonight. Rosie's here with that issue.
At issue tonight, pipeline politics. Alberta and Ottawa sign a historic agreement that could lead to a new pipeline.
This agreement today between Alberta and the Government of Canada, it's the first step. It's an example of cooperative federalism. We're agreeing in partnership and in a spirit of trust.
The government is rolling back environmental laws as the Alberta Premier now hopes a proponent emerges.
No matter whether it's a nation or whether it's a province or whether it's a political party, there's just different opinions on things. But what this agreement shows is that we're going to work collaboratively.
But the deal has already cost the Prime Minister one cabinet minister, with Stephen Guilbeault now resigning. So what's to be made of this new partnership between Ottawa and Alberta? Could the Prime Minister lose other MPs and allies? I'm Rosemary Barton, here to break it down tonight. Chantal Hébert, Andrew Coyne, Althea Raj, and Jason Markusoff joins us from Alberta for an Alberta perspective tonight. Nice to see you all. Chantal, I'll start with you. How big a deal is this agreement between Ottawa and Alberta?
Well, it is a big deal. It's a complete repositioning of the federal Liberal Party on pipelines. It's also a partial but almost complete withdrawal from the climate policies of the Trudeau era. So on both counts, basically the agenda has been transformed. It also is an interesting notion of cooperative federalism, if I can say that in Quebec, that would say you are mounting cooperative federalism while keeping out of the loop the province that is most affected by the pipeline plan that is put forward. There are times when words have meanings. In this province, cooperative federalism, I spent all day trying to put the word Quebec where BC was in all these announcements. And I thought I was in a fifth dimension. So I'm guessing BC voters who voted for the Liberals will have a lot of questions.
Andrew, were you surprised at how bold it was and how far it went in terms of giving Alberta the things that it's wanted for so long?
Yeah, it's not just an agreement for today, it's a partnership. We now have the federal Liberal Party and the Alberta United Conservative Party as partners. They have kind of joined hands and jumped on this because they both need each other in this respect. Carney needs to be able to fend off people saying this isn't a real pipeline by saying, well, Danielle Smith seems to be okay with it. And she needs to be able to similarly cite the Liberals' environmental credentials, if they still remain, against those who would say that we've just simply given up the store on that. So it's remarkable to see them working together in this way. It's remarkable also to see that you're getting actually better environmental policy out of it. We're replacing flawed regulatory and subsidy schemes with carbon pricing, which was supposed to be the deal from the start.
Althea made a face, so I'll go to her about the environmental policy there. Althea?
Well, I assume that Andrew is talking about the clean electricity regulations. So basically, Environment Canada has studied this and estimates that if you have an equivalency from only industrial carbon pricing, that price would have to be $400 a ton. And on our technical call today, we were told basically that that is not a number that Alberta is willing to pay, and that there are other parts of this agreement like competitiveness and affordability that will make sure that actually we do not get the equivalency, and that's why that word is not in the agreement. We will not achieve the same greenhouse gas emissions with this carve-out of the regulations in favor of an industrial price. So I'm sorry, but it is complete BS that this will result in better environmental rules.
Thank you.
Okay. Good answer there, Althea. Jason, from your end, I mean, is it being viewed as a win for the Premier more than for the Prime Minister in Ottawa?
I was in a room with Mark Carney and 1,200 Alberta business types at the Chamber of Commerce for his speech, and the mood in the room felt like it was a room that had, a foot lifted off its chest. This seems like a business group, an oil sector ready to go now. But these groups are, they feel, especially with the ending of a lot of these rules, this layering of rules, a much more simple carbon tax to go through, that they can get there. Yes, Alberta is committing through this process to net zero by 2050, but I don't know if anybody seriously thinks that they have a roadmap to get there. There is the carbon capture project, which will be a big deal, and it does have the guarantees from both the federal government and the provincial government to get there, which will make, as Carney says, Alberta's oil lower carbon, but that's still going to be much more carbon to burn.
And the carbon and capture and storage project only happens if the pipeline happens, so he doesn't get it.
And vice versa.
Yeah, exactly. Chantal, did it make sense to you, given particularly what Althea said there, that Stephen Guilbeault had to walk away from this? Because yesterday it seemed as though they had convinced him not to, and today a complete about-face and strong reaction from him.
They actually had not convinced him to. It's the usual PMO spin that everything is going to be okay, which it was, to tell you the truth. I spent, by coincidence, a lot of time with about 300 people who work on transition to a net zero economy. And the word I heard all day, it was a very jarring experience, was betrayal. And that is what people were saying even before they saw this. And I'm not talking people who wear sandals and are going out with a sign to say, save this tree. But the general feeling was that they couldn't understand how Mark Carney went from who they thought he was to this particular outcome. So I don't think Stephen Guilbeault whose job would have been to try to explain the unexplainable to this crowd, and I don't think that he could have done it with a straight face. And by the way, for those who are claiming that this is a great day because he quit, Premier Smith, I'm talking to you. In this province, Mr. Guilbeault is being claimed as one of Quebec's own by all sides of the political spectrum, and there will be a bill to pay for the federal Liberals here as in BC for this.
Yeah, and we will talk more about some of that in the next block. But Andrew, I'm just going to end on you, and Althea, you'll start in the next block. Is there a sort of environmental pragmatism to what the Prime Minister did here? I can at least get these things from Alberta if I agree to this.
Yeah, well, we've got a proper industrial pricing regime that is going to escalate in price. That's a gain. Getting the carbon capture and storage, we'll see what the economics of that are, but that is certainly progress towards reducing emissions. And more broadly, the political gain is that he's basically forking the federal Conservatives. If you've now got the Alberta Conservatives on side with it, it's going to be very difficult for Pierre Poilievre, for example, to be saying, well, we should abolish the industrial carbon price. It's going to be very difficult for them to paint Mark Carney as an out-of-touch, aloof technocrat who's got no feeling for the economy. This is very major in terms of its positioning federally.
Let me just quickly get Althea to weigh in on that piece, on what it does to the Conservative Party, and then we'll talk more after the break.
I'm not convinced that half of the things that Alberta is loosely committed to will actually get done. In fact, they had already committed to pathways, and now it is a pipeline, and then you get pathways. The two now come together. That is a rollback. That is not an add-on. When you have a political party that could very well lead the next government saying that we're going to get rid of industrial carbon pricing, then that carbon price is worth zero. So all those investment in the oil sands are worthless. So if you're a company that wants to invest billions of dollars to clean up your grid and your emissions, what incentive do you have unless the Conservatives look like they will never form government? I think there is a risk of uncertainty there. And the pipeline, what is really surprising about this agreement is that even if the pipeline doesn't get built, Ottawa has conceded so much to Alberta. And that's like the rather really surprising thing. Yeah. Discussions that we were not having at all publicly. So it is a surprise, and the politics are going to be very interesting.
Quickly, Andrew, then I'm going to take a break.
There is reference in the agreement to financial mechanisms, which I imagine is a reference to contracts for difference that would lock in industrial carbon pricing and would make it very difficult for anybody to back out of it.
Okay.
We all think we know what's in it, but it's not the word. The words are not there. And frankly, the commitments, Alberta got far more direct commitments than Ottawa got.
You're going to take a little break. We're going to keep talking about this because there's a lot there. When we come back, we'll talk about some of the hurdles that still have to be overcome, the reaction to it, and what backlash might come from other places.
We need to make sure that this project doesn't become an energy vampire with all of the variables that have yet to be fulfilled.
Okay, so what challenges, we've seen some of them already, might the pipeline proposal face? Can they be overcome? That's next. At issue, pipeline pushback. Mark Carney says his partnership with Alberta is important for Canada's climate goals.
We are going to get to our greenhouse gas objectives, our climate objectives, only through massive investment. And so we need agreements like this.
While the BC Premier says there is no company behind the project and no agreement from First Nations.
We need to make sure that this project doesn't become an energy vampire with all of the variables that have yet to be fulfilled. No proponent, no route, no money, no First Nation support.
So what about the pushback of this pipeline? Let's bring everyone back. Chantal, Andrew, Althea, and Jason Markusoff. Jason, let's start with you. In terms of what Alberta might try and do now to convince Premier Eby, this makes sense, to convince coastal First Nations to get on board.
Oh, good luck. First I'll say. Now, there was some language in the Memorandum of Understanding that commits Alberta to collaborating with the British Columbia government to ensure that economic and financial benefits are going to be in place on this pipeline. Now, economic is not surprising. We're talking about, jobs in Kitimat, BC, or Terrace, BC, or along the route. Financial is interesting. Are they talking about some kind of financial revenue sharing? Of course, this is a big lucrative thing for Alberta to get a pipeline, to get royalties. The other thing I'd point out is that it seems like a lot of these cases, it's the federal government is going to be working with BC on this. It's going to be this trilateral deal. So it's not just going to be on Alberta to win over the British Columbians.
No, which was also surprising because a lot of people thought that was the play that Ottawa was going to make so that it could sort of wipe its hands of it. But that didn't happen either. Chantal.
Okay, so let's talk about jobs. This is Northern Gateway, the project, a zombie that was resuscitated. Let's talk Kitimat at the tail end of the debate over the Northern Gateway pipeline. The town held a referendum to see if they wanted all those benefits, and the result was 60 against and 44. So you start from a not terribly enthusiastic base. Coastal First Nations, unlikely to change their minds on a moratorium that they've asked for decades and that they implemented informally for decades before it was official. This would be a great day for the Liberal Party of Canada if only it had gotten elected to a minority government last April with the support of Alberta. But at this point, the people who actually made this happen were one in Quebec, set aside Stephen Guilbeault, that everyone is partying about that he's leaving in this province, he matters. And then there's BC. and the NDP voters of BC who went to the Liberals thinking that they were not voting for the Conservative pipeline agenda. Mm-hmm. So put all of those together, and maybe Mr. Carney will have a bit of a credibility issue, telling BC that he really cares about the issues in that province and those voters. I believe this is the best day the NDP has had in more than a decade.
So what?
Yeah. And I heard Peter Julian on French radio this morning, former NDP, I think deputy leader, and I could hear the step and his voice having this unexpected bonanza offered the party.
So what does the Prime Minister do with that then, Althea, knowing that he has created today new enemies, might be too strong a word, but people who aren't going to like him as much as they did yesterday?
Well, he really hopes that the Bloc Québécois doesn't call for a recorded vote on the Budget Implementation Act next week. Because if so, there would be a lot of Conservatives hiding behind the curtains, because I'm not sure you'd be able to get Elizabeth May to vote in favor of this budget or have the two NDP members abstain. I agree with Chantal. The politics really make very little sense. The Liberal government or Liberal Party under Mark Carney was not elected with this agenda. The other thing I think it's worth flagging is this Memorandum of Understanding does not say the north coast of British Columbia. It just says to Asian markets. Yeah. So it doesn't have to go through Kitimat or Prince Rupert, as Danielle Smith has talked about. And when you talk to Alberta and they say that they want this pipeline approved in 2 years and shovels in the ground by 2029, really hard to see how you could do fulsome Indigenous consultations on the old Enbridge route. But could you go and do it through an expansion, a further expansion of TMX, build a pipeline along that route? Possibly. But we're not having that discussion, and instead the Liberals have said they're willing to forego the oil tanker ban and things that have an emotional connection to their own voters.
But the Prime Minister was elected, Andrew, on a plan to make Canada economically stronger, more sovereign, less dependent on the U.S., all those things. Is that argument not compelling enough behind this idea?
Well, we've listened here to all the downsides politically. It's possible the Prime Minister and the people around him are not complete idiots. And it's possible there's also upsides in terms of attracting seats in Western Canada and in Ontario. The upside from claiming the center ground in Canadian politics, claiming the center right ground, I don't think should be discounted. This is the kind of symbolic thing that can really change people's opinions of a government. The Liberals have not won a majority of the seats in Western Canada since 1949. It's possible there's some upside, some gains that can be made there. I was interested to note the remarks of the British Columbia Premier. There was a lot of no's. No backer, no route, et cetera. I didn't hear him saying no way, no how. One of the lessons of this agreement, which we were told was never going to happen, is that if you put enough pieces on the table, it becomes easier to make agreements than if you just have one or two things that you're haggling about. So it's possible that in this remarkable three-way negotiations that we're heading for, that there may be things that Alberta and the federal government can put on the table that can alter the arithmetic in BC, particularly as already noted, a plurality, if not a majority of British Columbians are actually in favor of the pipeline.
Very quickly, Chantal.
I feel like I'm hearing a discussion on the Charlottetown Accord. Put a lot on the table and all will be good because everyone will find something to buy in on. Excuse me for being skeptical. I'm curious to see where it goes from there, but rarely as a government, Tom Ditz knows that the people who got it in government to the advantage of the people who did not.
That is it for At Issue on The National. We're going to keep talking, this time about how Ottawa is supporting sectors affected by Trump's tariffs. You can catch that on YouTube or the At Issue podcast. Now back to Adrian in Toronto.
Thank you, Rosie. Coming up, a wrong number leads to a lasting connection.
Either the party bus missed me or I'm in the wrong group chat.
How that moment sparked a years-long friendship. Next. So this is a picture with quite the backstory. You see, while these three are now friends, they only met after a wrong number got added to a group chat. Since that day, more than 6 years ago, their friendship has grown with some Pretty fun moments along the way, and now their accidental connection makes our moment.
Either the party bus missed me or I'm in the wrong group chat.
My wife and I had a joint 50th birthday party. One of my best friends realized that his wife's number was left off the distribution. He attempts to add her. We are talking about what music we're going to play on the bus. Kendrick's number was in all of those.
Someone sent a picture of you guys at dinner, like Photoshop my head in. That's where we started.
This was a genuine young man with a great sense of humor. We have this hack band that, is going to get together. Kendrick says, I'll come.
We met the summer after.
It was just like kind of having an older brother that I never really had. Now we play football together on Sunday afternoons.
It made me open to people.
I would just wish we were closer so he could be here at Thanksgiving with us.
It's a great reminder to remember to treat people the way that we want to be treated. You never know what's on the other side of the page.
Hey, what a happy accident this is. It's so strange because in the news when we talk about people being accidentally added to group chats, sometimes it's in the context of the Pentagon accidentally adding a defense reporter into a group chat. It's all national security, gets very messy. This is a very good ending. From all of us at The National, thank you for being with us. I'm Adrienne Arsenault. Take care.